Welcome into the home of best ball in Europe. We started this summer off drafting with Erik Beimfohr on Draftkings, so it feels like a good time to round things out and bring Erik back on. And tonight we're going to jump into the Draftkings $100 free entry contest. Erik, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. It gets me every single time I come on the show with you. So I started Spike Week, right? And I love to use the very first best ball community. Like I love to, it's fun for us to have our little cliches and stuff. Nothing hits harder than the home of best ball in the UK. Like that in Europe, excuse me. The home of best ball in Europe is I wish I could, maybe I'm the home of best ball in St. Louis, Missouri, where nobody cares about that. That is an incredible tagline.
Well, yeah, it became quite an organic bit to start with, and it was like, well, there is nobody else over here really doing anything. There's Colm, who works with RotoViz, who does a great amount of work with them. But I mean, everyone drafting is on that side of the pond. So yeah, until somebody comes and tries to take it from me, this is the home of best ball in Europe. And we definitely appreciate your support throughout this offseason and being able to use the Spike Week tools. Erik, at this point in the off season, is there anything in particular that you're using the tools for to really drill into what you should be looking at, what you want to finesse before drafts close in 8 days' time?
Yeah, really good question. I am really heavily focused right now. Right, obviously, we just had cut day. I'm sure everybody that's watching this is more than familiar, but we're still in the process of getting down to the 53-man rosters. There'll still be a little bit of fluctuation leading up to opening day. I still don't know what the Browns are doing exactly with a whole bunch of quarterbacks and no running backs on the roster, but some little things around the edges. But generally speaking, now that we have basically who's going to be on the team at least to start week one, we've gained some information, right? Obviously today, Samaje Perine goes to the Chiefs. We got Eli Mitchell kind of out of the blue being put on season-ending IR. Some guys that I was drafting, Evan Hulls of the world, are on the practice squad now. And so we kind of have a totally new draft environment from like round 13 on or so. And what I'm really using the tools for then is to go in and I'm just going to be drafting around the clock basically for the next week. And so I want to really make sure that I want to pile in on these guys that have like come available to us late. I've been drafting the crap out of Jordan Mason. I want to draft even like the Emmanuel Wilsons of the world with AJ Dillon out. Like there's so many new guys I want to draft, Samaje Perine himself. And so I want to make sure that I'm now not drafting those guys like on all of the same teams with all of the same other players. So, constantly coming in and making sure I come into the draft, I'm planning on taking Samaje Perine in the 17th round. All right, when I took him last time, I don't want to have all of my Samaje Perine buoyed to Lamar Andrews stacks or something like that. I want to make sure that, Perine's on some Mahomes teams, Perine's on some CD teams, Perine's, I want to spread those bets around because I don't want to be right about piling on these guys that have come available to us late and then only have them on the same teams, the same combination of other players on those teams.
Yeah, when it comes to higher stake drafts, I know you've been doing a few. I know you were in the Drafters higher stakes draft earlier today, which people should go and check out on the Spike Week channel. Are you more inclined to really push to get your guys, or do you want to not give up value and just really balance things that way?
I'm gonna get my guys kind of a player in the higher stakes stuff. I've been doing a little more of the high stakes stuff the last couple of weeks. I kind of wait till this time of the year to do a lot of that stuff. And I'm not saying I throw ADP out the window because you still want to try to play the game of I want to get as many of the players I like together on the same team, which requires not reaching too far. But like in this and 3 entry max, $100 entry fee, I kind of am much more so of the let's go get my guys. I did the $250 single entry earlier today. And so like I had my choice between Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, I think at the 107, and Justin Jefferson is my 103. And so I have more Justin Jefferson, but that was a higher stake. I'll spread it out in the Millie Maker or, the play action or something. But in these higher stakes ones, I kind of want to, that's the point of all this. We got our guys. Let's go get them on the teams that matter the most.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy football is supposed to be fun. We are drafting next to Adam Levitan from Established Run by the looks of things, unless somebody else has duped his username.
Somebody does have Evan Silva on Underdog. Somebody that would be. I'm pretty sure that's Adam Levitan, but it would be really funny if that happened.
We were drafting on Monday night on Underdog, and Pat Crane ended up in one of our drafts and ended up just throwing him a StreamYard link, and he jumped in halfway through, and it was very nice to catch a very laid back Crane. But we're up at 104. Do you want to go with Justin Jefferson, or is it one of the running backs?
Let's do Jefferson.
So Jefferson was a player that I went into. I think it was the drafters $2 contest, and I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to throw 100 teams in this contest, and this is going to be the contest where I'm going to draft the shit out of Justin Jefferson. And I came away with basically any time that I didn't get CMC or CD Lamb, I was taking Justin Jefferson if I was in the front half of the draft. And it perhaps felt a little bit worse when you realized you weren't going to see any JJ McCarthy, but Sam Darnold should be serviceable. Have you felt any different about him after the injury?
Not at all. I totally understand why someone would be, aren't you worried? One of our favorite bits, right? The aren't you worried? I totally get it. Like, it's Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins, but I think this is one of those really unique situations where JJ is really insulated from just about any kind of systemic risk. The coaching staff and the system, it just churns out production, passing yards, fantasy points. They led the league in passing last year. Like, we look back and you think like, oh, well, yeah, they had Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins didn't play for most of the season last year. They led the league in passing with a combination of Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, and Jaron Hall playing more than half of their games at quarterback. In fact, Justin Jefferson averaged 139 yards in the games that Nick Mullins started down the stretch last year. So Nick Mullins started 3 games. Justin Jefferson averaged almost 140 yards and a touchdown per game in those games. Nick Mullins is on the team, by the way, as the backup. So that's your worst case scenario, is now it's Nick Mullins. It's not great for winning games. No, I'm not touting the Vikings to win the Super Bowl or anything, but I think Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver on the planet. And their defense is not great. They play in a dome. The system is great. The target competition is totally minimal. And could things go catastrophically bad? Sure. That happened for Jamar Chase last year, and nobody was expecting that to happen. Anything can happen, right? Tyreek Hill failed down the stretch. But I just want to bet on that situation, that's superstar talent, and kind of just roll with the punches.
Yeah. So through the first couple of rounds, last week we drafted in the $100 contest on this channel, and at the 112, CJ Stroud was paired with Derrick Henry.
Oh my gosh.
caught me going. And then tonight we've got Rashee Rice going at the 203 of the Garrett Wilson drafter. That feels like a spot which could line up for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. So maybe that's what they're planning. But I mean, the Rashee Rice rise has been pretty crazy. I'm seeing him going inside the top 33 picks on DraftKings now. Are you easing back off Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I'm using a couple of these tournaments that are new, like the Puppy 3 on Underdog, and like some of these like new $3.20 maxes to just like let me just get Rashee in these tournaments where like I'm not competing against 7th round Rashee Rice from earlier in the summer. And like I think he's really good. I think the 203 is a little steep, but I think mid 3rd or something like that is a good price for him. And so I just want to get some, but I want to do it in the tournaments where it kind of makes the most sense. And the Millie Maker and BBM and stuff, unfortunately, it just doesn't make as much sense because he's moved up. I mean, on DraftKings, he's moved up like 7 rounds. And it's kind of crazy. I don't want to compete with 8th round Rashee Rice with 2nd round with the 2nd round player.
Yeah, so Chris Olave goes before us. Jonathan Taylor's 7 spots past ADP. You into that? Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, the punt returner.
I don't love JT on DraftKings so much. Yeah. I would be Kupp. My rankings are Kupp, Adams, Neighbors here is like my top 3. So I'm good with
let's go
any of those guys.
Let's go Kupp. And then for me, it would have been either Waddle or Neighbors, kind of the players. So like, I'm happy to take a look at them when they come back around. I wonder whether Adam is going to take Waddle a stack with Hill. If you're in this draft and you haven't mentioned it, do let us know. I see we've got Rob at the back at the 11 spot. I've got a few of our YouTube members in tonight. Tom's spending his paycheck in all the right ways. But that's right. I got paid today for the first time in 3 months.
Oh, yes.
It's been a horrible, horrible best ball season for me living in the budget streets. But we're back in style.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Rob also saying love the Spike Week tools, except when it reminds me of 22% Kendry. Yeah, I mean, there's still time to change that if you draft a couple of hundred teams between now and Thursday.
I think that's why I'm drafting so much, is to see how low I can get the Kendry number to go down, so I don't feel so bad.
So JT does go to Adam Levitan, then Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams.
Nice.
Are you worried about Kyron Williams? For me, it felt like it was a bit overblown yesterday.
It's nothing to me. Would I prefer that he didn't return punts? Yeah, of course. Like, I don't really think that that's necessary. It seems like silly, but Sean McVay knows a little bit better than I do. And I don't think Sean McVay is going to put him in true harm's way. And, 2 extra hits a game at most, like, come on, like, we're really going to overreact to that.
So, I mean, we'll come back to what happened on the turn in the middle, but Davante Adams, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, and Malik Neighbors. Depending on what Adam does here, for me, this is either Waddle or Neighbors. Neighbors goes. Are you okay with Waddle?
I'm totally okay with Waddle.
So you're still in on Davante Adams then?
Yeah, it's a little bit similar to the Justin Jefferson thing, but much, there's more risk. Of course, he's much older. I think there's more systemic risk with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, even than that sounds crazy, right? We're Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell against Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins, and I'm siding with Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins in the safety, but obviously Kevin O'Connell has the most to do with that. But I think on the Davante thing, like it's again, like, aren't you worried? Yeah, he's older. The Raiders system, situation is not amazing, but like, the dude did just get 180 targets last year.
It's a lot.
It wasn't efficient for sure, but the quarterback play was not great. Theoretically, the quarterback play has improved at least to a level. What I really like about it this year is that the worst case scenario is Aiden O'Connell. Last year, it was like, now we got Aiden O'Connell last year, but we got rookie year Aiden O'Connell, like, thrown into the Wolves on a team trying to make the playoffs. Like, we're never going to throw the ball because we don't want to put him out there in a bad situation. Now it's like Gardner Minshew is who he is. Gardner Minshew's probably very good for Davante Adams. I would think he was very good for Michael Pittman and some of these other guys. So I just think that, like, the stability of again, the talent of Davante Adams, the risk is that he's older and that could fall off at any moment. But I think that the efficiency last year was more situational based. Like, the Jimmy G was horrible, like, truly horrible. And I think that, if you get another 175 targets from Davante Adams and Gardner Minshew is just a little bit better and maybe their defense regresses, like, he could be a top 5 wide receiver right back again. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I don't think I'm quite as bullish on him as yourself, but, like, for me, I was always chasing the youth in terms of Waddle, Neighbors, guys like that around the back of second turn, Chris Olave. But if he starts falling down to this range where CJ got him from at the 6th spot today, then I'd absolutely be fine taking him. I think that the difference between him and Mike Evans in terms of what they probably produce fantasy-wise isn't too massive. The team out of the 10 spot did take Patrick Mahomes. Assume that they're probably going to take Travis Kelce here.
I hope Rob, take Kelce from him. Take Kelce from him. Don't let him go.
But I mean, elsewhere in this draft, there's some pretty interesting things going on. Team out of a 1 spot with 3 running backs back to back to open things up. Team out of a 12 spot takes Marvin Harrison, Saquon Barkley, Trey McBride, and Josh Allen. Travis Kelce does go. It's quite the chief stack. Are you I mean, this is a 23, 24-man final. Are you looking to stack more in these small contests, small finals, or less?
So
I hear conflicting opinions on this.
Yeah, so maybe my take is going to be a third little nugget to that. I'm definitely looking to stack teams a little bit more, the smaller final, but I don't want to spend all of my draft capital doing it, if that makes sense. Like a Packers stack is beautiful. That's actually what Rob and I just did earlier, an hour ago. on our draft. But like, right, Jordan Love and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs and Marshawn Lloyd, like adding those guys together is really no draft capital, but you can still reap all the benefits of that team stack. When you put all of your players, your 3 of your first 4 picks, like think about that from an auction dollar like comparison. It's so much of your budget.
So we've got Stefan Diggs, Tank Dell, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, Mark Andrews might come back to us around the corner. He's not gone yet. And then obviously T. Higgins, Christian Kirk. Anyone you're particularly high on in this range?
I love Tank.
Let's go Tank. I'm down with that. I just think like people are overreacting to stuff massively on preseason and forgetting, obviously we didn't see Tank Dell to end the season last year, so it's a bit easier to fade in when preseason usage doesn't line up with what we'd hope for. But it feels like above anything, of course, the Texans are going to try and keep Stefan Diggs involved and happy and integrate him, but they know what they have if they need to fall back on it. And again, much like Kyren Williams, if Tank Dell does the odd kick return, I'm not going to worry about it.
No, and just the floor is so high. Like, so
yeah.
Even if we don't get the absolute peak ceiling, we didn't pay for it. We just paid the 4-0, the 4th round pick, like on bordering on a 5th round pick in this crazy wide receiver market where every wide receiver is expensive. And the floor attached to CJ Stroud with a 2nd-year really good player. Like I'm not worried about preseason snap rates. Like, just give me the good football players.
I like running backs is absolutely getting pushed up in this draft, even more so than some of the other DraftKings drafts I've done in the last few days. But it definitely feels like, I mean, you guys track the ADP over the last 7 days. We'll come back to it in a minute. Do you want to take Mark Andrews here and lock in elite tight ends? Get that week 17 correlation. But yeah, like in terms of the players rising, it feels like the quarterbacks at the top have been pushed slightly. The running backs have been pushed a lot, but then we're seeing kind of like the quarterbacks in the mid-tier range, like the Joe Burrows, the CJ Stroud, start to really drop. But then Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels really get pushed up. Is there any particular quarterback targets you've been hammering over the last week or so?
It's funny because we took Tank. I've been feeling that Stroud thing a little bit. Jaden Daniels was like one of my really big priority targets. And I do feel that stress, like you just mentioned, that every draft I get in, he seems to go a couple picks earlier and everybody is starting to really get into Jaden Daniels. Clearly, I like him. But it becomes a little trickier sometimes to get him than it used to be, like in the mid to late 90s. Now, a lot of the times he's going in the mid 80s or something. It's not a huge deal, but it is just like be cognizant of it. Whereas Stroud has consistently gone in the 50s most of the summer, maybe early 60s, and he still goes, I think his ADP is like 63 or something like that, but he'll fall, right? That's an average. That's every once in a while, the guy who takes him early, who took 2 of the Texans wide receivers. But, a lot of the times you'll be, especially in a higher stakes draft, the people who don't have the Texans wide receivers are not taking CJ Stroud. So you might be able to get a nice value on him. And I also think DraftKings format is awesome for him. Like, you want to talk about him and Mahomes, guys that really benefit from this, like 300-yard passing with all these superstar, like they're awesome quarterbacks with these superstar wide receivers around him and like not an incredible running game in their offense. Like, I just think DraftKings is the perfect place for him, and we're getting a much better price now on him than we've had all summer.
Yeah, team out of a 12 spot going with the hero wide receiver tactic. It was it's an interesting one. It's not one I'm think I'd be doing with double QB, but he's got Kyler Murray stacked. We'll leave Team 12 to do what they want. Rob, good luck with that team on the corner. You're gonna have
Team 12 and Team 2 are just they're having fun, man. We just let them have. Maybe they went to happy hour or a midday lunch. Yeah.
Hey, time for it. We've got the league in the chat saying that he's in a few slows with Eric, and it's a race for Tyler Algier. 25% of him. Yeah, I'm set at about 20%, and about a month ago I was saying on every stream, he just feels like probably one of the very best running back backups in the league, and he should be going at least where Zach Charbonnet was in the kind of 130 range at the time. So happy to keep chasing him up. We got a couple of picks away. Obviously, no running backs yet. We've got the 4 wide receivers in Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Tank Dell, and Mark Andrews. what are you doing at this range? Is this last wide receiver before easing off them, or are you interested in any of the running backs?
That's my favorite thing to do here. Is I love the kind of trio of Keenan, Godwin, Jaden Reed. And so I kind of am just mixing and matching those guys. I like Jaden Reed a tick more than Chris Godwin, but they're like very close to me. So if you preferred Godwin, I'm totally fine with that. But it's kind of those three.
I prefer Godwin, but I've got him in. I've only done a couple of higher stakes drafts this year, but I've definitely got Godwin in at least one of them, if not both. I'm pretty sure I've got him on Fantasy Pros $350 team, so I'm fine diversifying a bit to Jaden Reed. Like, my argument with Jaden Reed is always, when he was going higher than this, it was a hard click for me. And then we've had the different stages of the offseason have been different Packers hype. You know, there was the Dontavian Wick month, there was the Christian Watson month when his hamstrings were fixed. So now it kind of
had a Bo Melton week. I think Bo Melton didn't get a whole month, but he got like a week. We've gone through every receiver. Yeah.
So like, I think it's more just like, I was kind of waiting to see how things played out. Like, I definitely took some Romeo dubs when the hype picked up on him a little bit before he got too expensive. But Jaden Reed, I mean, I love him as a player, made me some good money on DFS last year, so I'm not fading him completely. And 4%, it's, you know, the blanket isn't enough, need a little bit more. We got one more pick and then we're back on Roma Dunze, Keon Coleman, you know, JSN, the only wide receivers in this range. But Aaron Jones, Raheem Mostert, Zamir White, anybody kind of standing out to you? I believe CJ Stroud's gone already. Yeah.
So we have Jefferson, Kupp, Waddle. I wouldn't mind either a running back or Jordan Love. I think make a lot of sense on this team. I think we're in a good spot to get away from wide receiver.
Well, let's go Jordan Love, and if we pull him up here, then we might be able to, when it comes back around, maybe we can look at taking either Christian Watson or Romeo Dubs or Dontavian Wicks, one of them. How are you playing the Packers tight end room? Are you drafting either of them particularly? Like, I was quite high on Tucker Kraft coming into the offseason, and of course he tore his pec, and you go back to like March, April, and I was talking up Tucker Kraft shouldn't be drafted behind Luke Musgrave as much as he was, but then once you get the torn pec, of course you have to completely ease back. But now it feels like you should be maybe in round 17 or so already.
I totally agree. It's nice to meet another Kraft slappy, right? We're the people that get to say that we know ball, and then Musgrave, you know, is the starter, and we can just shake our fists at it during the season. But I straight up think Tucker Kraft is better than Luke Musgrave. I thought he was better as a prospect, and then I thought that showed out last year. Obviously, Luke Musgrave went down, and I thought Tucker Kraft really showed a lot of what he can do during that time. And I was shocked. So when we, like you mentioned, April, May, when we first put the rankings out, I had them back to back in like the 160s or 170s, and actually had Kraft right in front of Musgrave. It's kind of like a little bit of a hedge, but also I wanted, like, the subscribers, like, I want you to know that I think Kraft is the better pick, but this is kind of where I would take the Packers tight end, is kind of how I like to do it. And then, like you said, torn pec, and you're like, this might be over. Like, he might not be ready for the season. And then Musgrave just, is the guy. And he's miraculously back. Like, all of a sudden, we're just like, wait, Tucker Kraft is back at practice? This is crazy. He's getting, speaking of Packers hype, he was getting a bunch of hype after he came back about how good he looks. And I think he's just a better fit in the offense. So I'm not taking Luke Musgrave, and I am taking like some late round Tucker Kraft, like tight end 2, tight end 3 on certain teams. I think he's a pretty good pick, and another guy who has not been drafted in every draft for a lot of these. And I particularly, like those guys when it's like a tiebreaker, right? When we get to the later rounds and this guy's sub 100% owned, it's a nice little feather in their cap.
Yeah, Brent in the chat asks if either of us are doing the 250 single entry. I probably won't. I'm probably trying to get a bit more volume in the Millie. Did his yesterday, got Jefferson at 108, Drake London, DJ Moore, Kelsey. Really nice start.
I just did mine earlier today, so I don't remember. I know it has Jefferson, but I don't remember what the rest of it is. But I'll pull it up while we're talking here.
seeing some things going on. Dak Prescott taken unstacked to the team out of the 8 spot. They do have Devonta Smith, so maybe we're going to run it back with Brandon Cooks. But yeah, and then the team on the turn did add Khalil Shakir to the Josh Allen stack, and then went with Cortland Sutton. That feels a tad high for Cortland Sutton, but I guess now you don't need to worry about Tim Patrick. It's an easier click. Okay, so if it's coming back to us, Christian Watson is gone off the board. Jordan, we've got Jordan Love. We could take Romeo Dubs right about ADP, or we could add Jordan Addison and build out the Vikings Minnesota side of it.
Or do you want to? Is there a running back that anybody that jumps out to?
I'm probably not in on Zamir White too much, but Javonte Williams, I'm probably trying to make up for my lack of early exposure to him, and I really like Chase Brown.
Let's do Javonte. Let's do Javonte.
Yeah, and obviously
I say that because I think Dobbs, Wicks, Addison, some combination of there, if we do still want them, is probably going to be available here next.
Fair.
And that's fair. It gets me every single time. I never know if you never know what people mean, but I know obviously I know what you mean. But this running back tier really to me is just one that I'm really trying to hammer. And so like you mentioned like the small final. If we don't go crazy on the Packers and it's just Jordan Love to Jaden Reed or maybe a 10th round Wicks or a later round Kraft, right, as our tight end too, I think it's totally fine. I'm really trying to hammer this running back zone, like from I don't know, from James Conner down to Rico Dowdle probably is what I would call it. Like that whole big tier is like I'm overweight like almost all of them. It's funny you mentioned Zamir because I'm not overweight on him, but like Javonte, Pollard, Tajay, Brian Robinson, all of these guys, I like all of them. And so I'm trying to make them kind of a pillar of my team because I also have some later wide receivers that I really like too. Yeah,
good shout. I'm fine if Jaylen Warren comes to us at pick 100. I'm completely fine taking him.
Yeah,
Are you?
That's who I would take.
Yeah, 23%, and I'm not backing off. For me, I put a video out and a piece also on Fantasy Pros this year about how the range of running backs from pick 72 to 110 over the last few years has just been awesome. Like, I think it was go back to 2021 and 60% of the running backs in that range outplayed their ADP, 58% the year after, 56% the year after. And so if I can leave every draft sort of double tapping that position between picks 73 to 110, particularly when this year we're getting like RB 23 to 38 sometimes in that range, then I'm going to be a happy man. And I will drop that video in the description of this chat after we are done for people to check out. Andrew, coming to the end of my first year, best ball at the age of 54. Big thanks to all of Sanctuary for helping answer my newbie questions and Erik for his epic streams over on Spike Week. I mean, hey, we're blessed to be able to just keep doing this and have people tune in. But yeah, I'm definitely going to miss best ball season when it's not here. Hyped for the season, but we're rounding out best ball season with a 5-hour stream on Sunday. We'll be live from 2 p.m. Eastern or 7 p.m. UK time, and we'll have a bunch of people on for that one, drafting on Underdog, Draftkings, and Drafters. Erik, what kind of things have you got planned to round out your best ball season on camera?
It's fun. It's funny you say that because I think it's going to be tomorrow. So we're recording another Legendary Sickos tomorrow. Myself and Pat Green.
And that'll take you to Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll take me about till kickoff. But we got a couple more of those, and then we're ramping up some draft streams. We haven't been as much in the draft stream space this summer, but we're going to ramp up here down the stretch. A lot of drafters because I'm particularly trying to probably drafters and Draftkings for the next week. We love our good friends at Underdog, but I'm really trying to hammer the drafters like overlay that they have in that $15. And then I'm drafting a ton on Draftkings here down the stretch. It's funny you're doing. If anybody is looking for anything to do this weekend, let's just say you're covered in the best ball space. Rob, my coworker Rob Coakley is going to do a kind of a marathon stream on Saturday, starting at noon Eastern. He hasn't even, I think he's just going to go until he drops. And so he's going to draft all day on stream, and then you guys are drafting all day on stream on Sunday. So that's kind of the next, several days. As if you want best ball content, there's plenty of it out there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Just going to be a fun time. And then gets Monday and it's all brains towards week one. Like
I got my biggest home league. I'm doing a main event draft on Monday and my biggest longest running home league, like fairly higher stakes home league draft on Monday. So I'm trying to map out all my best ball stuff, because Monday is going to be, a wash. It's my season long day of the year.
I did my home league draft on Sunday, and after last year, we moved the clocks down to 2 minutes. Somebody complained, and the clocks went back to 5 minutes this year.
5 minutes. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
15 rounds, 5 minutes. I think we managed a nice, succinct 4 hours all in all. Yeah, but I did give me a chance to draft the FFPC team and the Draftkings team at the same time. We're back up.
That's funny.
Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears in this range, or we could take Tua for the Waddle stack.
I like one of the running backs. I mean, man, to be able to get Javonte with elite quarterback, elite tight end, and those wide receivers, I'm a Singletary over Tajay guy. But I like them both. Like I said, that tier, I have like small preferences. Like I'm a big Brian Robinson fan. I like both the Titans guys with the pass catching and everything. That the shift in their offense has been pretty cool to see it play out in the preseason. But really, like I said, from like James Conner to Tajay on DraftKings, maybe Rico Dowdle. Let's toss Rico Dowdle in there. I'm just like, I want all these guys over a whole bunch of teams, put them up in a blender and spit them out. And like, because I like your site that you had earlier was so good, and it made me feel a lot better too. Was like, these guys are going to hit. I don't know which ones, but I know that these guys are going to hit in this range. So just give me a bunch of them, put them together on teams, and kind of see how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. The team on the turn, after going 6 straight wide receivers, does take a quarterback in Jared Goff, and then J.K. Dobbins, who Eric, on our first show that we drafted together this year, we got J.K. Dobbins at pick 196,
and I hated it. I think I hated it.
You did. You were so annoyed that we had to take him. We'll see what Adam does here. It would make some level of sense for him to take Tyreek Hill, perhaps to pair with Jalen. To take Tua at a pair with Tyreek Hill, but he takes Tajay Spears. We could take Tua now, 14 picks past ADP. I'm not into Eckler. I don't mind Jacoby Myers, but I don't really end up drafting him. Taysom Hill's gotten pushed quite a long way up. Anybody for you? Wide receiver.
I actually really like taking Tua here.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think
it's this weird range. Do you feel this too? Like once the Tajays, Dowdles, those Wicks, those guys go off the board, and certainly when like Njoku and Bowers go off the board, it's like a wasteland. It's not that none of those guys are good, but it's that I don't feel there's a huge difference between the Ecklers and the Shaheeds and Jacoby Myers and what all the guys, Goddard. I don't feel that different about those guys than a ton of guys that go after them. So I do a lot of Tua in there, a lot of Trevor Lawrence in there, a lot of, if I have a Lion, I'll put Goff in there. Like I like to use that as a little quarterback or a wide receiver, like a mini stack window. Rob and I did use that, took Lawrence and then came back and took Gabe, like exactly kind of where we were right there, just to be like, we hate everybody else. We might as well, draft a quarterback we like and stack him up with somebody and then build out our running back room, and the rest of our wide receiver room in the ranges where we actually like those guys. Yeah.
Question in the chat. Can I get Eric's thoughts on my 35% Jordan Mason? I mean, like, you want to come in here swinging your ball bag around, like, just you know what you're doing there.
Bullock is one of my guys. He's a longtime awesome member of the Spike Week community and Discord and tools and everything. And he only, from what I've gathered, Bullock, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. He like it was maybe only a few weeks ago he finally started drafting. I think he's drafting like almost entirely on Draftkings, and he's just going ham. I don't think he's sleeping for like weeks.
I
And
love it.
and I'm wildly aggressive on Jordan Mason, like wildly aggressive. And so he's using some of the Spike Week ranks and some of my thoughts on Jordan Mason. And so he's just letting it rip in a bunch of slows, right, coming up on the clock. And then Eli Mitchell gets cut. And I'm like, buddy, I just moved Jordan Mason to 118 in my rank. He's directly after Rico Dowdle in my rankings as like the number one handcuff. Like basically after Rico Dowdle, there's no more handcuffs. So give me CMC's like locked in handcuff. And so he's like, when should I take him? I'm like, whenever you come, whenever you come up next on the clock. So yeah, he's going to have a whole bunch of Jordan Mason, and so am I.
Are you more open to doing that with a guy like Jordan Mason because he's not been drafted for what, like 80% of draft season?
Yep. That's exactly it. If he were, you know, so sure, like I have last round Jordan Mason teams that are obviously exciting, but at this point, I just want to get the players who I think are the best picks onto my teams. Whether I get him at 175 or 145, it really doesn't matter. Like the comparison is like, okay, so if I take him at 175, I have Jalen Wright at 145. If I do the inverse, I have like Khalil Herbert. Like, what is objectively the difference between Khalil Herbert and Jalen Wright? Like as a pick, like there's not that big of a difference. And so I don't want to give away my Jordan Mason shares to like really try to push the value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. We're coming back up on the clock. One pick before us: Dalton Schultz, Zeke Elliott, Matt Stafford, Pat Fryermuth, AD Mitchell. I've been taking some AD Mitchell as a run back to Malik Neighbors, but of course he goes before us. Jalen Polk. We could take Tyler Algier, and then we'd have 4 running backs, and I'd feel really good about it. Or do you prefer Jalen Wright with
I prefer Tyler Algier.
Yep, I'm good with that.
That's my flag plant of the year, Tom. Tyler Algier. I don't have that many honest to God. I don't have that many like player takes this year. Tyler Algier is the one. I just think the price has been wrong all summer. I think he's risen and it's still wrong. I have him like behind. I mentioned where I put Jordan Mason. Like Tyler Algier is the next running back in my rankings behind Jordan Mason. And so he's going to be he is very much my highest owned player right now. He's going to continue to be my highest owned player.
Yeah, I'm just glancing over on Spike Week on the draft board, trying to find where I've got him in terms of, overall across all contests, I'm at 24% Tyler Algier, just behind Brian Robinson and Jalen Warren, who are at 27%. Like, he's such an easy click for me, the contingent value, the standalone value that he could have. I'm fully on board with Tyler Algier and won't be easing off even if he jumped another few spots in ADP. Let's see. So we've got 2, 4, 5, 1 so far. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Tank Dell, Mark Andrews, Jaden Reed, Jordan Love, Javonte Williams, Jalen Warren, Devin Singletary, Tua, and Tyler Algier. Bucky Irving goes just before us. Zeke is plummeting, but I don't have any interest in him. Jalen Polk is always interesting. Adam Thielen, Michael Wilson, Josh Downs, Xavier Legette, or running back Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Braylon Allen. 10 seconds left.
Jalen Wright. Let's do Jalen Wright. We have Waddle and Tua, obviously, and not that week 15 matters that much, but there's just like these little perks that they light up on your screen using the draft hacker that are so nice. Just as like tiny little tiebreakers. Like you see, all right, this guy is correlated with my team and with my quarterback, and like I use way too many colors. People probably look at when I'm drafting and they're like, my God, man, the whole screen is just a bunch of, it looks like Christmas lights. But like you see these different things pop off the screen, and then you're just like, all right, how do I make a decision when I like 3 running backs right here? And it's like, well, which ones have colors on them? You know what I mean? Like anywhere. And so I think Jalen Wright is a great bet. And I like to take contingent value running backs on my team stacks so long as they don't like hurt the upside of that team stack. If you know what I mean? Like if Mostert goes down, the Dolphins are fine. Like they're totally fine with Jalen Wright. But like if CMC goes down, like, you know, Brock Purdy, and like it's good for Debo, but it's not good for Brock Purdy. And so I try to be really cognizant of that, but I like it with the Jalen Wrights of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to stack running backs for quarterbacks slightly more often this season. I mean, the research I've done in DraftKings, it's definitely noisy because it's only looking at the finalists, but the top 4 most common stacking partners, like QB plus 1 wide receiver was the most common, then QB plus 1 wide receiver and 1 tight end. And then after that, the next 2 both involved running backs. So it obviously is viable on DraftKings, whether those are outliers or whether, people are just stacking running backs more often on DraftKings and perhaps other platforms. It's something which I feel like it's not something I'm going to shy away from. And definitely when you've got those kind of exciting players on exciting offenses who have pass catching upside, it just feels crazy not to. Your boy Jordan Mason does go up 1403.
I was hoping we were going to get him at this next one. I got selfish.
But I think, the running back room we've got, I mean, we've basically built the 0 RB hyper fragile build that Pat likes to talk about, where we've gone 5 wide receivers through the first 6 rounds, and then we've hammered running back. We've also got our second quarterback stack. Quarterbacks are flying off the board. And now the only position we're possibly in need at is tight end, but not to the point where we drastically need it. We do have Braylon Allen, Khalil Herbert, Marshawn Lloyd, who avoided IR, but that's about 20 picks away. My rankings are out of date. In terms of wide receiver position, Adam Thielen, Josh Downs, Xavier Legette, Bateman, Wan'Dale Robinson, Demarcus Robinson. What are you liking in this range, or is there a tight end that you'd go for?
I like waiting on tight end a little bit. I'd probably go running back again here, to be honest. I do like Josh Downs. I'm buying the Josh Downs dip. So if we wanted to go wide receiver, I'm open to that. But for me, Braylon here, I'm super into Braylon. It's like when you're building like 0 running back teams, having the backups of the first round pick running backs is like the easiest way to magnify your leverage. Yeah. It's like, okay, if I'm saying that this idea of waiting till Javonte is our first running back, I think, like, if the idea of waiting till Javonte for your first running back is right, and the early wide receivers are right, what does that mean? It's like, well, the early running backs, I'm not saying they had to get hurt, because they definitely did not need to get hurt. But if they did, like, I'm winning with my early wide receivers. And how else do I benefit from that? Well, they're backup, right? That's why Tyler Algier is one of my highest owned guys. I have a ton of Braylon. I'm drafting a ton of Jordan Mason, right? I'm drafting Will Shipley, right? Like, all of these guys, right? Like, I was trying the Evan Hull thing. Obviously that failed. Now, look, there's going to be some Trey Sermon in my teams. There's going to be maybe a sprinkle of Tyler Goodson. Like, I'm going to, because I'm trying to compound that bet against those early running backs.
Yep. So we're 1 pick away. Josh Downs still on the board. Adam Levitan before us does take Daniel Jones. Josh Downs for week 17 would make a little bit of sense, unless he wants to go Wan'Dale. He takes K Dotton to stack with Baker. That makes sense. Josh Downs.
I love Downs here. Yep.
Yeah. I think, weren't the Colts saying that there's a possibility he could be out there week 1? I mean, don't rush him on my account, but if he's back early, then completely fine with that.
And he's our wide receiver 6. Like, if we needed Josh Downs in week 1 to like survive this year, something went catastrophically. Like, something went terribly wrong with this team if Josh Downs being out for week 1 was the reason why we didn't, move on.
What's on your week 1 bingo for Twitter when it comes to these games? Obviously, we can cross off. Don't forget to take your Thursday night players out the flex. You weren't drafting him for week 1, all these kind of things. What other tropes are you looking forward to seeing when you open up Twitter and that Thursday night game?
Man, that is such a good one. The guys, so people who are inactive, I told you so, like so-and-so's inactive week 1, which, by the way, is one of my favorites, because Devon Achane, for anybody that remembers, one of the biggest league winners of last year, one of the biggest league winners of years, was inactive in week 1 last season. I'm trying to think, like, he's the wide receiver, like the rookies who are not starters. It's like, see,
he's buried.
Javon Baker, it's over. And it's like, I don't think you get why we were drafting Javon Baker. It was not because he, of week 1, but it's Kareem and I did a show earlier this year, and he came up with the phrase, and it's brilliant, and I love it. And he called it week one brain.
Yeah.
And I think that happens over the course of the summer. And what you're describing is basically right. We all get that week one brain where we're like, when we don't see the guys we were hoping for, even though we didn't draft them for week one, when we don't see positive news over the summer, or they're not running with the ones like Javon Baker, or Luke McCaffrey, right, is not running with the ones, is like, we panic and we're like, oh no, it's over. And it's like, that is such week one brain where all you're thinking about is what the week one depth chart looks like, instead of thinking about like, remember when week 17 was all that matters? We just talked about that. We used to talk about backloaded production and playoff upside and rookies and all that kind of stuff. And then training camp and week one happened, and we're like, oh no, it's over for all of these guys. And it's like, no, that's not the case. So it's important to remember that. And I've been trying, we all fall for it. I've been trying to remind myself of that too. And I think I've done a better job this year for sure.
Yeah, it's tricky because there's that balance, but you don't want to overreact. And, there will be a lot of overreactions, but if you're playing things like main event, you're playing high stakes, you're playing redraft leagues, reacting appropriately to the guys like Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, go back to James Robinson over the years. Like, these are the guys who can make a massive difference if you go aggressively after them on waivers. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm trying to get better at, in general, over the last couple of years, that once the best ball teams are drafted, the best ball teams drafted. And although I can check in on them and see an awful lot of great stuff on your site, that money's gone. We don't play best ball to try and break even or anything like that. It's going to take a 1 in a million type shot to really pay off. So
you're putting your money in a low yield CD or something, a low yield savings account. Hopefully it comes back. Worst case scenario, you lose a little bit and it's all right, but we have fun along the way. That's all we're really doing.
Yeah, so at tight end, Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson, Chigokonkwo, Mike Gesicki, Greg Dulcich. I don't mind Hunter Henry, but it's the same bye week. I think we could push Juwan Johnson. Wide receiver, we've got Greg Dortch. It gives us some week 17 correlation. I like Jermaine Burton a bit at this price. Demarcus Robinson feels good. Anything for you?
I like Wandale's popping off the screen. What do you think about Wandale? Every single playoff week, and obviously correlates with Devin Singletary.
No, I like that. Wandale's one of those players that I should draft more of because I like him as a player, and he gets those nice little correlation matches at times. But I think sometimes you get into this range and it depends what your roster's looking like. And sometimes I'm shooting for upside, but on this team, maybe Josh Downs doesn't play for a few weeks. Maybe Jaden Reed doesn't have a role we want. Maybe Tank Dell is slow out the gate.
Somebody in the chat was mentioning, Jalen Waddle hasn't practiced in quite a while. We actually could need Wandale for a small stretch.
Yeah, definitely. Russ in the chat saying always do the $100 entries in slow draft mode and start in May. Well, this contest, it only launched 2 days ago. So if you're going to start slow drafts now, get ready to speak nightmare on Monday when the DraftKings.
I just entered a few slows yesterday just to try to get in. It was like, I don't want to draft them live, and so I'm like, I'm gonna push this misery to next week. Like, I know this is gonna suck, but I don't want it to suck right now. Like, I want it to suck next Wednesday and next Thursday.
Yeah, for me, over here in the UK, it's just not an option. There's too many drafting hours where it's open. So I think I've still got 35 slows going, 32 slows still going. So
mine's not too bad.
Taking it. So we're on a 2-6-7-1. Demarcus Robinson, Hunter Henry, same bye week as Mark Andrews, Juwan Johnson, and then down to the kind of dart throws. Anything standing out?
I'm not at tight end. I wouldn't mind pushing Tucker Kraft. I shouldn't say his name, out loud. But can you look at running back just super quickly?
Let's go Kraft. Just I don't want to lose him. Yeah, perfect. It's a bit of a reach, but I just think for what it's got with this stack, I'm completely fine just taking him there. And I think that pushing him to round 18, it's 20 picks or so, but there's enough research out there saying that kind of stuff doesn't really matter at this point in the draft. And Tucker Kraft was the player whose name I didn't want to mention, because when you look at these guys,
bad.
Yeah, it is bad. And I don't mind having one of them as a dart throw, but I think that Tucker Kraft is hands down the most talented one out of that group.
And none of the other guys fit on this team. They would just be random one-off punt tight ends, whereas he actually fit super, super well on this team. So, like you said, 17th round versus 18th or 19th round, like again, I'm using that auction dollar analogy. Like, we have been in the $1 auction players. Like, for anybody that's played in an auction league, you get to the end and everybody's just like, please God, end this. Just like, what? Just give me 3 $1 players so I can get out of here, right? Get out of this draft.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you hit like the 15th round in these drafts. So like, don't worry about it. You know, like, I have to remind myself of that too when I'm in the draft. So being like, I got to the 15th round. Am I really going to take a guy who goes in the 18th? It's like, do you need him? Like, is he really important to this team? Like, then do it. Just like, who cares? Because all you're doing is mixing up your $1 players differently than other people mixed up their $1 players.
Yeah, and my argument as well for just locking in Kraft is with Andrews and Kraft, I'm a little more open to 2 tight ends if we need it than I would have been with
I prefer
guy like Theo Johnson.
I'm a huge 2 quarterback, 2 tight end guy. To really just like hammer people in the flex and running back wide receiver. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Let's see. Self saying it could actually be a good strategy to join slows this year. I think if you're ready for it and if you've got the time and if you're prepared to update your rankings and update your positional limits through the desktop on DraftKings as well, then it's definitely worth trying. I just think it's also going to be a brutal week for you. So, but you know, there's sickos out there multi-tabling 30 puppies at a time. So perhaps I'm just being a little too cautious of it. But
I wake up in the morning and multi-table DK Millies, Tom. So like that's my coffee. That's how I get moving in the morning. So if I can't handle, you know, the whatever 30-minute clocks next week, then maybe I'm just not very good at this, and maybe I'm not very good at this. But you know, there's like a little something to that. Like I said, if you have a full-time job or something, and you can't be doing that. But if you're available and you're like skillful enough to be able to like really hone in for a whole day, I don't think it's terrible.
Yeah, I'm working a job
it's miserable. You're gonna hate it, but you might have an edge.
I'm working a job where I'm in an office space rather than in a room on my own for the first time in my adult life. And let me tell you, drafting best ball teams is a lot harder in that environment.
That's good.
So we're 1 pick away, 2-6-7-2. So, I mean, yeah, I'm fine to definitely look at another couple of wide receivers and get up to at least 9 here. We've got Malachi Corley, Jordan Whittington, Jalen Naylor gives us more.
Can I sell you on Jalen Naylor?
I mean, I'd be happy for you to.
I would love to take Jalen Naylor here. Gives us kind of another Vikings bet to add to Justin Jefferson. And you know, if Justin Jefferson is succeeding in the first round, of course he could just be Justin Jefferson, but also the Vikings are probably not like failing completely miserably if Justin Jefferson is doing well. Okay, so what does that mean? I'm not sure if you're aware, TJ Hawkinson not playing for a little minute, like probably going to be out for a while. I'm not sure what's going on with Addison. I don't think anybody really knows. Obviously, he has the potential suspension risk at any point this entire season because he's a dumbass, but also he's hurt right now. He has an ankle sprain. Jalen Naylor is their wide receiver 3. They've basically confirmed it. And I know that seems like a name that people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like, who is this Jalen Naylor guy? They kept him around this is his 3rd season in the NFL, and he's basically never played because he's not been healthy. It's not that he's not produced. He just has never been healthy. He actually, from a yards per route run perspective at Michigan State, alongside Jaden Reed, who we drafted on this team, outproduced Jaden Reed at Michigan State. And he was only a 6th round pick. You know, he's probably nothing, but the hype this offseason has been nothing but the Vikings pounding the table for Jalen Naylor. So I'm drafting a boatload of him right now.
So we got a 2-6-8-2. Are you want a running back with one of these last picks, or just leaning more towards wide
Do you want to do like a P. Ryan or like somebody who hasn't really
P. Ryan's gone
much?
already?
Shit.
We could go Emmanuel Wilson.
What about Emmanuel Wilson? We got a Packers bet going.
Yep. I'm good with that. I think that's one which I don't think many people, because Marshawn Lloyd avoided IR, I think people will talk themselves into not drafting Emmanuel Wilson.
But if Jacobs gets hurt,
yeah,
it's not like Marshawn Lloyd is certainly not week 1, but like it's not like Marshawn Lloyd is going to play every single snap. And look, I love Marshawn Lloyd, and I'm drafting a lot of him right now. It could just be Emmanuel Wilson as the backup. Like we can wish cast Marshawn Lloyd a lot, but I'm trying to take some Emmanuel Wilson here down the stretch. Maybe I'm bag defending because I was drafting some of him in the big board on Underdog because I thought he might end up being the backup, but. I think these are the kind of guys I want to draft in the 19th and 20th. Now, he clearly has some form of a role. I don't know what it's going to be. He's on the team, and he has been drafted 0 times, right, up until this point. So the highest ownership he can get to is 20% or something like that.
Yeah. So in terms of wide receivers, we've got a few picks to go. How far are you scrolling down at the wide receiver position? Do you go a long way? Like, it goes pretty deep in terms of players who could contribute. Like Brendan Rice was somebody I sprinkled in a few times on those New England Chargers stacks. He did make the 53 roster. We've got guys like Jalen Brooks, who's been falling a bit in ADP, never really kind of capitalized on a bit of early hype. Yeah, it gets pretty bleak. Press up for Chase Claypool.
I mean, you put my favorite guy in the queue, Malik Washington. So that's I also just believe like the DraftKings ADP is straight up wrong on him. I don't understand why he's a 20th round pick. I'm not saying he should be like of course. I'm not saying he should be a 14th round pick. Oh, fucking Rob. Damn it. But so for anybody that doesn't know, like Malik Washington was one of my favorite prospects in the class. And I know he was a 6th round pick, but Odell is starting the season on the PUP. River Craycraft is on either the PUP or short-term IR. So he's probably going to play week 1. Like he might be the starting slot receiver for the Dolphins week 1. And I think he's going to be their kick and punt returner week 1. And if you haven't, just go watch some Malik Washington highlights. He was incredible as a senior at Virginia, and I think he's just pretty good at football. So I don't really get that price. He would have made so much sense for us on this team with Tua too. But
do you regret taking Emmanuel Wilson over him now?
A little, but that's just because I'm a biased Malik Wilson stan. I think Emmanuel Wilson was a good pick. He is a good pick.
Yeah.
I got a guy who I'm taking a bunch. I'm curious your thoughts on in the last round. I don't know if he fits this team necessarily from any correlation perspective, but Parker Washington on the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's the wide receiver 4, but I actually kind of like taking some of the wide receiver 4-ish guys. Like you have Bo Melton, and he's a wide receiver 5. But I like I like taking those kind of guys who I think Parker Washington's good. And if something happens to Christian Kirk, buddy, wheels up on him. And also what has Christian Kirk ever really done to deserve, is it possible that, partway through the season, Parker Washington is better than him? Unlikely, but what isn't unlikely with a 20th round pick, right? All the dynasty folks that I follow that are really into him, or that are following the Jags are really into Parker Washington. They're pounding the table that he's the future slot receiver on the Jacksonville Jaguars, which always just makes me excited for best ball, because if they like him in the future, it also could just be earlier than they're hoping for if something breaks his way.
Yeah, I'm down with Parker Washington. I mean, I haven't drafted him at all, but when you look back at his rookie year, there were the injuries and bits, and it kind of never really got going. But there's been plenty of talk around the Jags for Washington and Trevor Lawrence have really got a bond this year, that they've been working out plenty and really got on the same page, which, that's what we see time and time again. When the rookies get past that and they get those reps with the starters, it's well worth it. I think I do like Christian Kirk. And one of the reasons I like Christian Kirk is because of how much more productive Trevor Lawrence has been when Christian Kirk's been on the field with him. It's 4 more points per game. But if Parker Washington's able to leverage his new relationship with Kirk and, you know, an injury-free offseason, then what's to say that Trevor Lawrence still can't be really productive there? So that's our 20 rounds. Let me just recap it. From the 104, with a 2-7-9-2, we drafted Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Tank Dell, Mark Andrews, Jaden Reed, Jordan Love, Javonte Williams, Jalen Warren, Devin Singletary, Tua, Tyler Algier, Jalen Wright, Braylon Allen, Josh Downs, Wandale Robinson, Tucker Kraft, Jalen Naylor, Emmanuel Wilson, and Parker Washington. So in terms of week 17, when we make it to the 23-person final, we have a mega Packers and Vikings stack with Jordan Love, Emmanuel Wilson.
We might be invested in that one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's going one way or the other. We've got a bit of Indy and the Giants, and then, of course, Tank Dell and Mark Andrews. How are you feeling about his team, Erik?
I love this team. This is clearly you were playing to my heartstrings, letting me draft it late early. This is exactly how I draft. I love elite tight end. I love elite-ish quarterback. I would call Jordan Love elite-ish, not elite, but elite-ish, right? Something before Caleb, you know, in the Caleb range or something. Getting a good quarterback, getting an elite tight end, getting a bunch of elite wide receivers, and hitting that window, right? That running back window that you outlined, that just the smashes are coming from there, and then kind of bolting everything on there where it makes sense. Thereafter, taking a couple flyers at the end on some maybe low-owned guys. I mean, I absolutely love this team.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think there's definitely some players who I haven't got. And while last week when I drafted a $100 team, I called the draft, go get your guys. And I very much leaned into that. I'm also open to this idea that if you don't have exposure to guys, then getting them in higher stakes drafts can weigh a little bit off that. And, you know, if I'm right here, then it can be right enough to make up for some errors elsewhere, perhaps. So, no, I'm definitely down with that. Adam Levitan, who drafted next to us, Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor, Malik Neighbors, Stefan Diggs, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Joe Burrow stacked with T. Higgins, Hollywood Brown, Jake Ferguson, Blake Corum, Tajee Spears, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Cade and Daniel Jones, and then Kamani Verdell, Greg Dortch, Audric Estime, Theo Johnson, Josh Reynolds. That's definitely a fun team. And then Rob out of the 11th spot, Puka, Drake London, DK, Etienne, Kirk, Kyle Pitts. So we've got over leverage against Kirk now after he took Malik Washington. Now, if Parker Washington, if he pays off, it's coming for Rob and his Christian Kirk share.
We're going right to battle with Rob. Yeah.
Kyle Pitts, Keon Coleman, Tony Pollard, Jerome Ford, Trevor Lawrence, Austin Eckler, Kirk Cousins. So he's got those stacks nicely. 3 quarterbacks all stacked. My guy, Rashad Bateman, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, Roshan Johnson, Malik Washington, and Dylan Laub. Another fun team. I mean, this was a much more normal draft than the one which I did last week. The team at the 1 spot who went running back heavy to start, then went really wide receiver heavy for the next 6 rounds. The team at the 12 spot who took Josh Allen, Kyler Murray both early, went 2-5-10-3, so did ease off completely. You know, they got the McBride, Harrison, Kyler stack. They added Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel to Josh Allen. So there's definitely some sharp drafters in this room. Erik, before we get out of here, anything in particular the people that should be checking out over on Spike Week at the minute?
No, just, you know, our bread and butter is the tools, which of course you can get a nice hefty discount if you are a Sanctuary member. And this really is, if you've never tried them before, like they will do the sales pitch better than I ever could. You saw everything in this draft on your screen when I mentioned, you know, the things lighting up, and I'm like, look at Wandale, like he correlates with a player on our team. He correlates on every single week of the playoffs. There's just so many things that the tools, mainly the draft hack, our 2 biggest tools are the draft hacker, which is of course what you saw here. It overlays information onto your draft screen while you are drafting, and then Draft IQ, which allows you to really analyze your teams after they have been drafted. You send them over to our database, and it allows you to like look at every possible permutation of teams. I drafted earlier today again with Rob Coakley, and we were making decisions using some of the information from within Draft IQ to help us make the right decision. Like we drafted CeeDee Lamb, and we were trying to see, like, do we do the DAC thing, or do we maybe look for something else? And you can use the data in Draft IQ to see what your opponents have done in your draft. So it's not collective of all drafts, of course, because we don't, like, I don't have access to Tom's drafts and he doesn't have access to mine, but I can get probably a directionally accurate view into what my opponents are doing. Who are they pairing? How much are they stacking this quarterback with this wide receiver? And all that information is so powerful. I know there's only a week left, but this is honestly like the best time for that. So yeah. Again, I believe your promo code is Sanctuary. Sorry if I screwed that up. Yeah. Promo code Sanctuary on Spike Week gets you 40% off. Go to spikeweek.com/go premium and just check out the tools. I promise it's $40 just a month and you can get 40% off. Try them out. I firmly believe that you won't be disappointed at all.
It absolutely changed the way I drafted. I was a big mobile phone drafter until Spike Week brought this out, and now I never draft on my phone unless I absolutely have to. It's just not having that information feels like just throwing money down the toilet. So yeah, big fans of it around here, and I know we've got a ton of our YouTube members who've signed up and very much appreciate them as well. I will be back on Sunday with Tyler for our 5-hour end of best ball season party. We will also have a bunch more redraft content on the channel over the next few days. Go and check out the video I did on running backs. I will put it in the chat after this finishes. Remember, there's a video from Pete Overzet on the channel today talking about his 3 favorite players. Appreciate everybody who hung out and drafted with us tonight. It was a lot of fun. We will catch you again very soon.